All right, well, let's learn the Magilla. The Magilla is a book which is written by Mordechai, a Yehudi, Mordechai, and he wrote the book. We read this book every year in the holiday of Purim. The holiday of Purim is a very unusual holiday in Judaism because it is a holiday of the rabbis, that the rabbis, I'm just looking something up over here, that the rabbis made this holiday up. And it's a very interesting holiday because it was the worst decree that was ever in the history of the Jewish people was on the Jews, and it came immediately after one of the best periods that were ever in the history of Judaism. The king of the world was a fellow called Achashverosh, and even though he was a bit of a fool, but he was married to a Jewish lady. So we had a Jewish lady that was the queen of the whole world. And also, Mordechai had said he was sitting in the gate of the king. And also the king made this big feast and he invited all the Jews. So the Jews were really sitting very well, and they were accepted, and they were honored. They had good positions. And all of a sudden came the worst decree ever in the history of the Jews to kill all of the Jews at one time. And this is Achashverosh ruled over the whole world. So there was nowhere to run, and there was no time to run. And there was no one to run to because everyone was against it. It was a decree to kill all the Jews. Everyone had this decree that they should kill all the Jews. And amazingly, it all turned around. And one of the reasons that the Talmud asks, why did this happen? And it says, because one of the reasons is the Jews gave up on the building of the second temple. They gave up. And they thought it wasn't going to happen. And in fact, that's what happened when Achashverosh made this feast. He made a big feast and he invited all the Jews. And that's how this whole thing starts off. The feast was commemorating the end of the appointed time that the temple was supposed to be built, or the Jews were supposed to come back. There's a prophecy in Jeremiah, in like the 29th chapter of Jeremiah, that says very clearly that Jews are going to be in exile for 70 years. And according to Achashverosh's calculation, and his wise men, which they didn't come out to be too wise, and the 70 years had finished, and that's it. The Jews weren't going to come back. The Jews were no temple, no this, and so he was very happy because he figured as long as he ruled over the whole world, and if the Jews would make their temple, it would mean that there would be sort of like this little pocket, this little area where he really wouldn't rule over. It sort of showed that God was still with the Jews. So when his 70-year period came up, the reason he made the mistake, there's a lot of different calculations to be made, when exactly to begin the 70 years and when exactly the 70 years ended. What was the sign that it would end? And in any case, a little bit of history over here, what happened. There was a king called Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar, he destroyed the temple. Took all of the Jews to exile. But really, before that, there was a king called Shalmaneser, and he came and he conquered the 10 tribes, 10 of the tribes in the north, and they were idolatrous and everything. They were warned, but they didn't listen to the warning, so they were all taken into prison. And in their place, as this Shalmaneser, he put all sorts of nations that came over there, and there were some Jews that he left behind, and they eventually became what's called the Shomranim, or sometimes the Kutim. And we're going to see they made a lot of trouble. They made a lot of trouble. We'll see in a moment. Anyway, so all the Jews are taken pretty much totally into Babylon, and they're in Babylon. And there were different stages when the first temple was destroyed. It was like destroyed. First of all, there was a King Yochaniah, and he was left behind. And then he decided to make a rebellion, and that was quashed. And then after that came another person that said Kyo, and that was quashed. It was like 2 years later. So it's a whole question when exactly this happened. And then there was like Daniel and a couple other people that they were taken into exile before even this Yochaniah was. So it's a question when exactly this started, when exactly this 70 years started counting. But the prophecy was clear by Jeremiah that it was going to be 70 years. The problem was, is Jeremiah right? You know, his prophecy was clear at 70 years. But the question is, was it going to be, can Jeremiah be relied on? Maybe God left the Jewish people, God forbid. So Achashverosh, according to his calculations, 70 years was up, and that was it. But who is this Achashverosh? The world was ruled by the Babylonians, right? Well, there came up a king called Koresh, right? This king called Koresh, Cyrus, what it was called. And Koresh, he was from Persia. And he conquered the whole entire world. And like 1 year after he conquered the whole entire world, he got a message from God, whatever it was. In any case, he said the Jewish people can go back and rebuild their temple. He worshiped God. He agreed with God. Jews can go back. They can go back and worship and build their temple. So I've read different numbers, 10,000, 40,000. Anyway, a lot of Jews went up to rebuild the temple. Well, if you remember these Shomranim, these Hutim that were put there in the upper part of Israel, so they sort of adopted Jewish practices, but they still were idolaters also. And they came and they said, we want to help. And their help was rejected. So they started making trouble. They made a lot of trouble. So the Jews, meanwhile, okay, here they are. The Jews came up from Babylon or whatever, and they came to the Holy Land. Not all of them, a large number, like I say, 40,000, 10,000, they came up. But there's a lot of Jews that remained behind. And with these Jews that remained behind, and there was Mordecai, was a holy person, and he remained behind to sort of watch over them. So here we got all these Jews are in the land of Israel. And these Kutim, the Shomranim, are making trouble. They're not allowing the Beit HaMikdash to be built. So the whole thing is delayed. And that's when the whole miracle of Purim happens. So this king Koresh, he dies. And eventually how it comes up is this Achashverosh, who he wasn't a king at all. He wasn't from a royal family. He becomes the king. He gets into the position, he becomes the king. And he marries this Koresh's granddaughter, Vashti. So that gives him sort of like a justification of being, a king. He's like sort of from the royal family now, even though he was just an outsider. But now he's a dictator and he's also a king. He took over by force, and he's also a big ruler. And Koresh, he had conquered the whole world. So all of a sudden, this Achashverosh, he becomes the ruler of the whole world. Meanwhile, the Jews are having trouble in Israel. They're not allowed to build a temple. And the Shomranim, they make all sorts of problems for them. And Achashverosh, according to his calculations, the prophecy of Jeremiah is not going to be fulfilled. And the Jews all make he makes a big party. He invites everybody, and especially in Shushan, that's the place he decided is going to be his capital. So it makes it, and that's how the whole thing starts off. So let's go. And it was in the days of Achashverosh. Who Achashverosh? This is the Achashverosh who ruled from Hodu until Cush. We'll see. Some people say Hodu and Cush, that's the opposite sides of the world. And some people say they're right next to each other. And this was, if you circumvent the whole entire world, 7, 20, and 100. 127 countries. 107 20s. There's a lot of explanations here, commentaries, but let's just do Rashi. Says Rashi, let's do this short. We'll do a short version, Rashi. Okay, long one. He was the king of Persia. Achashverosh, he was the king of Persia, that he ruled in the place of Koresh. Right, that they saw Cyrus, they call him Koresh. This is right at the end of the 70 years of the exile of Babylon. Who Achashverosh? Why does it say his name is Achashverosh? Who Achashverosh? Says it twice. Achashverosh. Who Achashverosh? Right? Who Achashverosh? It just said it's the days of Achashverosh. What does it mean? Who Achashverosh? That he was evil, wicked from the beginning until the end. Hamolech, he ruled on himself. He was not from the seed of the kings. And he ruled from Hodu until Cush. What does it mean? He ruled on 127 countries, just like he ruled on Hodu until Cush, that are one next to each other. That's one explanation. The one explanation. And it was just like he ruled on two countries that are right next to each other. Also, he ruled on countries that are far away from each other. And that's what it says also. He ruled B'kol Ever and Nar on the other side from a place called Pesach until Azah. He ruled in the whole world, and just like he ruled for over two cities. He was a very successful and powerful ruler. In those days, when Achashverosh was on his throne, that was in Shushan Abira. What does it mean in those days? Let's see. Rashi says there's huge, beautiful explanations here. Now, of course, we can't do them all. Targum, this is in. It says, Kishitkayim Malchuto. He had to make his rulership firm. And they say, Binyan Acher, they say in something different in the Gemara in Magilla. In Magilla, it says that he said, what does it say in the Gemara Magilla? It says like this. It says that it says how would it be? It took him 3 years. It took him 3 years until his mind was settled. Why? What was the problem? He knew the Jewish people were going to come back and build the first temple, rebuild the first temple. We're going to build the second temple, and he didn't know exactly when this was going to be. As soon as those 3 years passed, as he knew that there was nothing to worry about. And so we took out all the vessels. Now, as soon as there was 3 years. As soon as these 3 years passed, and all the possibilities, according to his mind, passed, the Jews were did not return. As he took out all the vessels from the holy temple, and he made a big party. And that's what it says. Yeah. He was, in the beginning, he was worried. That's why his mind wasn't settled until 3 years. In the beginning, Hayadog was worried that the Jewish people would go under his rulership. Because when they finished the 70 years of their exile. But now, as soon as he saw that the Jews were still, they were being, how do you say, harassed by these Shomranim, by the Kutim, as they weren't letting them build the temple. So now he was satisfied. One minute. You can also read Rambam. Oh yes, there's all sorts of beautiful explanations over here that we can look at, but we don't have time to look at them all here. Let's see, where is this? Here. No. Why is it? I can't go. Usually you can, there we go. Somehow or other I pressed the button for the Gemara, and this is not the Gemara. I don't want the Gemara. Well, how did I get here? I don't know. Here we go. No. 1 second. I don't know how. I must have pressed some sort of a button that put me into the Talmud. But I don't want the Talmud. 1 second, 1 minute. How did I get this? I don't know. 1 second. Sorry.
Go back up, Rabbi. Yeah, there. Exactly.
There we go. No. How did I get into the Talmud? I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to this confusion, but it certainly is a confusion. I just must have pressed the wrong button over here. So I'll go back to the beginning. Here we go. Let's go back to the beginning. Back to the drawing board. Well, we are slaves to these machines. Here we go. There we go. Excuse me. This is just so maddening. I'm sorry. I'm just going to make a pause over here for a minute. Good. On those days when Mela is king, Achashverosh, he made this big feast. On the 3rd year of his rulership, he made a feast for all of his ministers and his servants, Chil, Paras, and Madai, from Persia and from Madai, from Greece, and apart from these important people and the Sari Medinos and the big officials, they were all before him. Rashi, apart from him, these are the important people that were ruling, made a worldwide feast, which he owned the whole world anyway. So, and this is all to commemorate the fact that the temple was going to be. He showed everyone his Osher Kavod Malchuto, his glory, and the Tiferes, the splendor of his greatness, many days. How long was this party? 1/2 a year, 6 months. Shmonum umeat yom. 180-day party. Yomim Rabim, he made this big meal, feast, for 6 months. He was really happy. And when these days were finished, the 6-month party, so he made a special party. Everyone that's found in the capital city, from the biggest until the smallest, a big party for 7 days in the house of the king. Rashi, Ginat, this is the place where he planted vegetables, and Bitan, this is the place where he made his orchards. So he made this outdoor party for everybody. Malbim is also very interesting, but we want to make progress. Progress is important. Here we have there's a lot. So here we have all these how it's decorated. It goes into great detail. Chur, karpas, techilet, achuzba, chablei butz, varagamon. Chur, these are all sorts of different types of garments that are colored. He spread them all over for these for coverings. Achuz, they were held on by boots and argomon, by silk, ropes, petile, and threads of strands of purple strings and things like that. Praslem, Galila, Kesef, Al Mureshesh, Mitot Zav, Kesef, there were beds of gold and silver. He put them free, and the floor was also from Bahat and Shesh, from marble. All sorts of good, beautiful stones. He had all the money in the world, so he could make us stones for the floor from sapphires and rubies and everything. Everyone explains different meanings for this. There's also different Kabbalistic meanings and different Midrashic meanings, and what these all imply. but nevertheless, it was a meal, a 6-month meal you never thought before. And after that, he made a special big meal in Shushan Abira. Everybody was drinking from golden vessels and different types of cups and royal wine, which was as much as the king could provide. He said, a lot of the opinions are that he took these golden vessels from the Holy Temple. All the vessels were all different, one from the other. A lot of rabbis say that everyone got a wine was a little bit older than everybody else's wine. Okay, now, of course, this is a big problem for the Jews, because Jews are not supposed to drink wine that was touched by a non-Jew. And Mordechai was trying to warn everybody not to go, but they didn't listen to him. We're going to see. He promised it would be kosher food. You'll see. Hashtei kadat. He gave them according to everyone's will. Aaron didn't force anybody, because this is the foundation, what the king established, and all the waiters in his house, that everybody got whatever they wanted. Everyone, Rashi. Sometimes there's meals where you feel a little bit shamed, you have to drink a big cup, some people don't want to drink, etc. But here, nobody was forced. Everybody could do whatever they wanted to. The king would say, right, make announcements, everyone can drink, eat whatever you want. If you don't want to eat anything, you don't have to eat. He told all of the waiters and the butlers that were over there to give everybody whatever they wanted. Also, Vashti, his wife, she made a big meal. Now remember, Vashti, she's like the granddaughter of Koresh. So she's like of royalty. And Achashverosh, he's a big zero, but he's a king. He's very powerful. He's a great dictator. He's ruling over the whole world. So she's also making a meal, Beit Malchut, in the house of, and for the women are making a special meal separate from the men. And they had a certain sense of modesty. On the 7th day, when the king, and this is the after party, right? This is the after party, the VIP party that everybody is going to after the 6-month party. So on the 7th day, when the king was filled with wine, he said to Haman, we're going to see who Haman is. We're going to see Haman and Bizasa Charbana, Bigsa Arbaksa Zesar Bacharkas. These are the 7 servants that serve the face of the king. Some people say, what does it mean, Yom Shvi'i? Some people say, the rabbi say it was on Shabbat. This was on Shabbat, when all the Jewish people, now he knew that the Jewish people were transgressing Shabbat. Now he had the chance. So he said, let's bring my wife, the queen, in front of the king and put a crown on her head, and everyone can see her beauty, because she was very, very attractive. Rashi says, doesn't say. There's an explanation. Anyway, she was commanded to come. It says that she was commanded to come and dance in front of all these men naked, which there's probably nothing that she wanted to do more to show off her whatever it is, as long as she was young in this. But the problem is that she broke out in some sort of a boils or something that day, in some sort of hives or something, and she couldn't. So he was pretty stupid, and he didn't really take any excuses. So she refused. But Temoena Malka Vashti, and her Malka and this Queen Vashti, she refused to come in the king from the king's servants, And the king got very angry. And his anger was burning in him. Rashi, the rabbis say, because all of a sudden there came tzorat, some sort of weird leprosy on her. In other words, she would refuse, and she would, and then she would get killed, because she would do the same thing. She would take Jewish girls and make them undress and do all sorts of work in her house on Shabbat, light this fire, do forbidden things on Shabbos. So therefore, God made a decree that she would do the same thing on Shabbat. She would also be unclothed on Shabbat. So the king got very angry. This is a shame, but the king, you can't even rule over your own wife. You're telling us you're the king over the whole world, and your wife is not allowed. The king said to his wise men that knew what times, whatever it was, they were the ones that were, that because that's the way that the king does in front of everyone, that he should ask it says, this is the custom of the king, and every judgment that he puts it in front of, he's got all these advisors, right? So he has his advisors, he has the minister of the interior and the minister of the interior, the minister of debauchery, and the minister of decadence. So he says, the people who are close to him, Karshana, Caesar, Admosha, Sarshis, Miris, Marsana, Mamuchan, the 7 ministers of Persia and Greece, Madai, that they saw the face of the king all the time. They were always hanging around the king. And so he said, what should he do? Gadad, in order to do, what should he do with Vashti? Because she didn't come. And the king she didn't follow the words of Achashverosh in the hands of his servants. I mean, it was pretty stupid. He could have just said, well, ask her why she's not coming. Do something. No, she's not coming. I don't care about any reasons. I just want to know what I should do. So his advisors weren't much smarter than he was. And luckily so, because it ends up that this is the reason that the Jews are going to get saved in the end. We'll see. Mumuchan, who was one of his servants, Memuchan, this is going to be Haman. Memuchan, instead of the king, and now nobody knew exactly what to do. What are they supposed to do to tell her? To tell the king. So the king he's blazing mad. So they can't say, calm down, king. Maybe the king will kill them also. So comes Memuchan and he says, listen, Your Majesty, not just on you, of Vashti Malka, as the Vashti Malka has done this terrible sin. To all of your ministers and all the people that are under the kingship of Achashverosh. Avta means avon, the sin, right? You haven't done the sin. Because when this word of the king comes out, that all of the women, right? When this news of what the queen did to all of the women, then they'll all start shaming their husbands, and they'll say, Achashverosh said to bring Vashti, and she refused. So, if she refused the king, so I'm for sure going to refuse you. Every woman will make trouble for her husband. That's what Rashi says. As soon as there comes the word of the king of the queen, to all the women that she shamed her husband, so then they'll start saying, hey, maybe this is a new women's rights thing. Let's shame our husbands. Everybody will start shaming their husbands. So Achashverosh, he's getting angrier and angrier. Right? This is not just a personal thing already. Today, says Mumuchan, this advisor, which we're going to see, this is going to be Haman. So he says, tell all of the ministers of Persia and Madai and Greece that hear what's going on, that this is enough shame, enough disgrace has occurred already to the king. Rashi, tell all of the ministers of the king, this is what it is, this is what happened, and that this is a shame for the king. This cannot go on. Women are not allowed to go against their husband's will. If it's good for the king, if the king agrees, let there go out a word, a command, a royal decree in front of, and he should write in the opinion, the laws of Prasamadai, and no one can transgress this. Because Vashti did not come from the king, therefore her kingship will be given to some other lady that's better than she is. Therefore, what does it mean better than she is? Therefore, she should get killed. Right? You can't have two queens, only one queen. So therefore, and this law of the king will be heard that he's going to do with all the kingship, because the kingship is very great, and all the women will start to give honor to their husbands, from the biggest until the smallest. Good. So in other words, now the king, you have a good chance to make peace in the house. This is the marriage counselor. Achashverosh turned out to be one of the first marriage counselors in the whole world. He's the marriage counselor for the whole world. What's his advice? Your wife makes any trouble, kill her. And the thing was in good eyes of the king. King said, well, why didn't I think of that? That's amazing. The Sarim, of course, all the ministers also agreed. And the king did what Mamuchan said. Why? Because now, also when he kills Vashti, so it means that he is an unlimited king. Before, he was limited a little bit to the rules of rulership. Right, a king has to be for the benefit of the people, and etc. Whatever there was, and now he kills Vashti. All connection that he had to the previous kings, he's got a new thing now. He's going to be a dictator that's going to rule over the world, and he has no limitations whatsoever. And all these ministers agreed, and now all what means what that the power from the ministers is all taken away, and he has the power to do whatever he wants. Who advised him to this? This Mamuchan. Mamuchan is the minister that advised him. As like I said, that was Haman. So he sent letters to all the countries, every single country, as it is written in their own language, and in their own writing, and in their own language, that everyone should be a master in his house, and it was written in the language of each and every person. Rashi. Kofa et ishto, every person could force his wife to learn the language of her husband, if it's a different language. In other words, no longer will men speak the language of the women. There's no mama lashon, mother tongue. Forget mother tongue. Now it's all father tongue. Your mother speaks a different language than your husband. She must learn his language. No more speaking ladies' language in the right language. Okay, first chapter, second chapter. Let's see if we can get to this. Here we go. 1 minute. No. How do I change? 1 second. We'll figure out how to do this. Ah. Oh, maybe that. Oh, here we go. Yep. No. Oh, here we go. After this happened, Kashoch, they'll calm down Chamas HaMelech Achashverosh, and they calmed down the anger of King Achashverosh. Zacharat Vashti v'tasher asata. She remembered Vashti and what happened. V'tasher nigzar aleha, how he killed her, right? And also how beautiful she was. And now he got sad. The king got sad. But we're talking about a pretty crass person over here. Vayomer, and he said, Vayomer Nari Melech Mishartov, and the young men, the servants of the king, said, Yivakshul Melech Narot Betulot. Look, the king should look around for young virgin girls that are beautiful. Huh? What's wrong with that, Your Majesty? You benefited. Before, you had to be only married to one woman, and now you got all the women you want, right? The whole kingdom is yours. Remember, you're the king. The king said, well, you know what? You guys are right. The king made a decree, and he sent messengers, calling me down to Melchusov and all of the kingship. The was calling Nara, and he gathered every woman. Betula Tova, there was a virgin that looked good, to Shoshana Bira, to the house of the women, to prepare herself. She was given over to Hege Saris on Amelech, to the eunuch, Hege, the eunuch of the king, and he was the one that watched over the women. V'natun Tamru Kehen, and he gave their, whatever is their makeup. It says because everybody, that's why he sent special messengers so they could go around and pick out beautiful women. These are the women and he brought them so that they would go under this beauty treatment preparation. You'll see what this is. All sorts of good smelling oils and spices and ornaments and ointments and things, and this will make her flesh look nice. I mean, this is Achashverosh is a pretty low life type of a person, but what do you want? And the woman, the girl that will be good in the eyes of the king, she will be a queen under Vashti. Huh? Beauty contest. This was the advice that these young advisors of the king said, and he said it was good. Vayaskan, and he did it. He did this. Here it says that the Malbim, he says that here the king didn't ask anybody advice because already he's got the power to do whatever he wants to. So from now on, he doesn't take advice from anybody. He just relies on himself. Now it starts a whole new thing. Ish Yehudi, and this is, we're going to stop over here. Ish Yehudi, now we were introduced to Mordechai. We already have the king Achashverosh. We already are introduced to all the bad guys. Achashverosh and his wife Vashti. She was evil. She used to torture the girl. She got killed. And Haman, Umuchan, he gave this advice. And the Nari Amelech, the young advisors of the king said, why don't you just, try every girl in the kingdom? You got 127 kingdoms. There's a lot of girls. You can try everybody until you find yourself a nice wife. Okay, enough of that disgusting topic. What's this all leading up to? Ish Yehudi. There was a Jewish man. Haya b'Shushana Bira. Now this happens to be the first time that the word Yehudi is used in Hebrew literature to refer to all the Jewish people. Mordechai was Yehudi, also means from the tribe of Judah, Yehuda, but he was not from the tribe of Yehuda. He was from the tribe of Benjamin. So we'll see. Ish Yehudi, Mordechai. Ish Yehudi, so it says, why was he Yehudi? Because he denied idolatry. Ish Yehudi. Because he said, because he here he says, why was he called Yehudi? Because he was together with the exile of Yehuda. After Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the temple. So everyone that was taken, they were all called Yehudim. That's what he said. They were all called, even if he come from another tribe. He says, Ish Yemini, he was really from the tribe of Benjamin. It was from the tribe of King Saul, from Benjamin. Okay, and his name was Mordechai. Mordechai, and his name he was the son of Yair, who was the son of Shimi, who was the son of Kish. Ish Yemini. He was Ish Yemini means he was from the tribe of Benjamin. Yemini. Another opinion says that he was called Yehudi because he denied idolatry. It says anyone who's called idolatry, everyone else was bowing down to Haman. He had a little statue around his neck. We'll see that tomorrow. And Mordechai was the only one that did not. So it was Ish Yehudi, and his name was Mordechai. We'll go back to this, God willing, tomorrow. That he was exiled from Jerusalem with the exile that was with Yechonia. Now, Yechonia, he was a king that was exiled like 11 years before the temple was destroyed. Melech Yehuda, that Nebuchadnezzar exiled all of these people before the temple was destroyed. See if anybody says no, Rashi doesn't mention it. Vayehi Omein at Hadassah, and he took care of this girl that was called Hadassah. Who is Hadassah? Esther. Now Hadass also means like a hyssop, and it says that Esther was really green. She was really not very beautiful at all, but for some reason, this is exactly what Achashverosh wanted. She was Bat Dodo. She was we'll talk about what she was. In any case, she was his cousin. She didn't have a mother and father. And mother, and now Yafas Torah. Some opinions say, we'll see, Yafas Torah, she was very beautiful, Yafas Torah Tova Mara, and she was very pleasing. But when her father and mother died, Mordechai took her Labat as a daughter. Some people say, don't say bat, but for Bayat. He married her. That Mordechai married, says Rabbeinu Perishah Labayat, Liisha. That Mordechai married Esther. So Mordechai and Esther were actually married. And we'll stop with this. Remember, tomorrow we'll continue chapter 2, sentence 7. Have a good day, everyone. With Mashiach now, tomorrow, 8:15 in the morning, God willing, we'll learn Chassidut.